Hey, how's it going, everybody? Um, um, I don't know the guy. I don't know Nipsey Hussle. However, it, perhaps it was sometime last year. I was curious because I kept hearing his name through like the airways and stuff. As I was scrolling through YouTube and stuff and scrubbing the feed, and I saw this. Now, one of the things I do like to do is just expand my knowledge, and so even if it's stuff like things I don't agree with, or even like cultures that I'm not too fond of, I still try to give it a shot anyway because I'm like, I need to not need to know people. I need to know things. I need to know people I disagree with. I need to know people that I don't even know about. And and I was hearing about Nipsey Hussle, and I saw like this documentary about him. I think it was about World Star Hip Hop, about his significance. Because I was like, I heard him, and I heard him around, and I was just like, okay, let me see what he's about. So I learned a bunch of stuff about him. I learned he was well, just before that, I learned about the industry. I learned like things about the industry, and just how when go into the industry, they don't read their paperwork. They just see the glimmer, and they don't see like all the things, the long term stiffen that they tend to run into. And one of the things I heard from Nipsey Hussle, by contrast, is that he became independent. He became successfully independent. He When he had the chance, I think he was first time when he tried to sell T-shirts and stuff. A cop stopped him and told him like, if you and he stopped him several times, and he took his stuff. He took all his stuff. And one thing he said like, he I think he gave him the advice to do your stuff legal, you know. And so that's what he did, and his location bounced around within the same area, but he was able to finally get a spot that was like, a little more, a little less temporal, so he was just he made the spot. And so when it was a marathon, it was like two stores. And it it was such a blessing. He gave some people jobs. He reinvested in his community. One of the things I did hear from Ask a Drug Dealer from Kevin on Stage is that, from Freeway Rick Ross, the real Rick Ross, not the rapper, but he was saying how the dope dealers are the heroes there. Big reason is because of the influx of the economy within that local neighborhood, because they have money, and they put it into these communities. It even reminded me of Jay-Z when he was talking about, in his 444 album and the story of OJ and stuff like that. But how he was able to just put money into the economy, and give people jobs and help people out. And we have so much support for like our president because he's doing that. But it's like when he, it just sucks because people don't know about these rappers who are actually doing things like this. We just assume that it's money, and you just have little guys who comparatively little, big contributions to his hometown, and you hear stuff, like Chance, Kanye, all this stuff they doing, all this stuff, and it's just, we don't hear that, and it's just like his impact on just like the industry, and just getting your own, and again, this is very general knowledge. I mean, not general knowledge. This is very general to me. I'm generalizing, but this is very general knowledge that I'm putting out. But it's kind of saddening that people don't know, but that's okay. We're here to tell you, if you not just, Pete the knowledgeable should be there to not scold the people who don't know, but to enlighten them, encourage them, and teach them, or bring intelligence to them. And so, just seeing how he was able to do that, and teach young people, or rather these young artists, just, um, don't be mesmerized by when these industries bring you deals, that you don't read. And not just that, but just how do you survive independently, you know? Because maybe even for profit, I mean, nonprofit, maybe those don't work, or maybe they work within certain boundaries, or maybe they work with the aid of the government. I don't know. I couldn't possibly tell you that, but I'm sorry. That's off the topic, and in my ignorance, but just want to say that because I saw like this comment, like, what was it? what was it? Was it World Star Hip Hop? Something, some sort of news media outlet, who spoke about it. He was gunned down. It was sad because I had just recently um, understood more about him. And I was like, wow, that he's actually those rappers. He's actually doing what he said he's going to do. Reinvest in his community because you hear that all the time from rappers, but you don't hear a lot of it. You don't hear like the fruit of it actually being there. Or if you hear, you hear from like other places or in defense that when people say, why don't black people help black people, and it's like there are black people help black people. It just is not really being spoken about. But I was glad to know him and know what his contributions are. I saw even the person who was saying, I'm not going to support a gang member, oh well, he died, he's a gang member. I don't know why he died. Maybe it was gang related, but it's so sad. Not just that ignorance, because that's what it is. It dehumanizes because, especially in light of his and note of his contributions, it dehumanizes him. Oh, he's just those bad people who are just fighting against other bad people, and we disregard biker gangs who have a similar mentality of that kind of mentality. And I've said it before, like these, if you don't have, whether it's the intrigue of the stereotypes involving these groups, or the lack of parental structure, lack of family structure, is what draw them. They're drawn, and maybe they don't have guidance, father figures. This isn't just a black issue. This is all over. You got the yakuza in Japan, similar thing. I don't know too much about China. Maybe that's them. But it's like gangs start throughout. When people are liking something, people bring something of a substitute, and maybe that's not always good. And that could be from sex trafficking to, and I'm not saying that, I don't know the intricacies of sex trafficking, but what I can tell is that if people are liking that, or whatever trouble home or something like that they go through, maybe they are trapped in that. And maybe it's not trapped, maybe they willingly came. But it's like, I mean, where are you gonna go if you don't have anything better? It's almost like the the it's similar. It's almost like a similar case to what is it? Procrastination, where you reason in your mind. Like they say that not only is forgiving yourself is a helpful aid to against procrastination, but to give yourself, your convince your mind of a BBO, a bigger, better offer. And so if they don't have a bigger, better offer, where are they gonna go? And this is a human notion. This can be from any race. It just happens to be from particular races, minorities, and perhaps even the poor. So sorry, my nose is itchy. I don't know why, but I just thought I'd say that because it's just like there are people who say, who not only don't know him, and they keep saying, who is he, whatever, yada yada yada. But the people in the industry, they know who he is and they know his contributions, and he's well respected in the hip community, even though people in the mainstream, they do not know him, like, because he's I don't think he's a mainstream artist. I don't think his contributions are mainstream. And typically, from what I understand, culturally speaking, if we're culturally Christian, I don't know if that guy's Christian or not, it's said to not let your good deeds be exposed, like to brag about your good deeds. Don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing. So if we don't know, then maybe that's it. We They don't brag on the good that they're doing. So maybe that's just one of those things that got lost in translation. But it's like people don't know. And at the same time, these media outlets, that the love of money is the root of all evil. So if they are searching for ratings, therefore benefits, therefore money, and they love that, they love success ratings and stuff like that. Sorry, my nose. I'm just having the worst time, itchy time. Then they're gonna do whatever to keep those ratings up. So it's like the love of money, the love of the greed, power, success, greed, the love of things, the pride of life. It's just being overly attached leads you to do some crazy things. So it's like, of course, shock value things is are brought onto they were brought on the internet, and they brought on the news. I saw the news outlet. They showed this guy who was I'm not gonna bring it up, but he assaulted a homeless woman, you know, and it wasn't blurred out. I was shocked. But that's besides the point. I'm not. Let's not make negativity popular. Regardless if it's just a no. Like we need to start bringing that develop a relational trust with police officers, not just trust them. Just do it. No, we need to develop a relationship with them, and they need to have a relationship with us so that we trust them. You don't just blindly trust things. You have a. It sucks because then the our descendants are there's some persons various persons descendants who blindly trust the police. Why? Because probably because their ancestors have developed trust, and so now that trust is just merely is explained at birth, and now they have an unconscious loyalty to the police, and that's okay. You should trust your authorities, but you don't. Who how can you trust somebody you don't have a relationship with? you know that's like trusting a stranger. And many of these cops to these people are strangers. They're strangers. They don't know them. Cops don't know the civilians that they're protecting. Some of them do, and you see that in videos where the cops is actually having fun playing jump rope with the citizens that they're protecting. They have a relationship. So if they have a relationship, they're far more able to not just to cooperate against evil, but to protect their city, to care about their city. So just putting that out there, just thinking is that um Nipsey Hussle, like they say he's a like they try to dehumanize him. I mean, dehumanize him and say he's a gang member. I have no sympathy for gang members. Oh well, maybe he did it on himself or whatever. I think that was the only one I read. I didn't want to keep reading because I didn't want to tarnish that thought, my memory of him, with ignorance. I don't know what he's going through. I don't know what he's gotten himself into. I don't know about the things that were counterproductive. I think that's very counterproductive. Like on black crimes, counterproductive. It doesn't help us. But we need to know the inner workings between it because, like for instance, Kendrick Lamar's Black on Black. Black of the Berry. He speaks about, yes, I love um black lives, but at the same time I'm hypocritical because I kill black lives in gang violence. He's honest. At least he was honest to say that. He said this is just where I'm at. Now another thing. Now I can't remember what it's called, but it was from Cab on Stage's Ask a Crip. And the guy, he maintained his status. Was it Ask a Crip? I think it was Ask a Crip. I think so. And they asked questions. They asked very good questions, and they were pretty respectful. Answered good questions. And one of the things that they did say is that, "Are you formally a Crip?" And he says, "No, I'm not. I'm not. I'm still there. I'm still an active member." Now, take that as you want, but what my main point regarding that, not only in terms of like, I'm not down for negative um violent things. What I am for in that regard is that he worked with other members, which are their sworn enemies, for business. Think about that. They put their differences aside for the sake of business, and I'm guessing, I'm hoping that they help the communities in that. Just think about that, like for the sake of business, for the sake of food. He, and again, I don't want to say it's Thug Kitchen because that's not right. I can't remember what it's called, but it's from Ask Calvin Stage's Ask a Crip, you know, um, and he developed this kitchen, So even though this guy was a Crip, he developed a legal business. Think about that, legal business. Now, one of the issues, the stigmas regarding gang members is that they don't engage in legality. They don't engage in legality. They engage in illegality. They're just doing things they shouldn't, and they're just a nuisance to society. But they're not. These people aren't. They're doing legal business. They're serving people. They're serving even rappers. He was saying he was serving some famous rappers. So when I consider all this stuff, I just think the human experience is far more integrated. And you could say, well, black people need to do this, but I'm like, if we want to keep claiming like humanity, and which was always my issue, we need to do it on both sides. Like to say, okay, whites don't have it all together, blacks don't have it all together, or blacks are not all bad. you know. And it reminded me of this lady from Japan where she was born and raised in Japan, and then she came back to the States, and then she was kind of going back and forth, but it was like she was saying that America is so racial, it's so um, racial bias, it's just so racially centered, racially prone, and for me, it's like that, like it makes me think because it's like when people say, um, why is there so many there's racial tension, you know, why is there so much racial tension? Well, I like, again, I keep going back to history because we need to know where this came from. This stuff didn't just happen just randomly. Like, and I keep feeling like I should say it, and I feel like I know the words to say. I just keep forgetting it as I build this preface. But what I'm saying is this stuff was always here. These irritations, this not bitterness, but this angst has always been there. It's not like these racial tensions happen out of nowhere. Excuse me. When whites were living well, building good feature films before black exploitation, as we dub it, before all that, when America was building films and just being pioneers, being in an industrial age, and before that, just growing, being better, being far more ambitious. It's like they is great, but at the same time, where were we? Where were black people? Black people were attempting to survive and being criticized for just simply existing. Now we're being like stereotyped, and I know every time many times where I've had conversations with older white men, I didn't bring it up. They brought up racial topics, and tell me what are my thoughts regarding it. And then they bring their topics on it. And for me, I'm always like I kind of pander sometimes, but at the same time, I try to be honest, but it's like it's very hard for me because it's like when I talk to them, I'm already knowing that they're gonna give their opinion. They're gonna hear me, and then they're gonna just try to force their opinion down my throat, and it's tiring because it's like it reminds me similar. It is very much similar to me, to just witnessing for Christ when I used to do it a lot more, and that's just like the intolerance, and in these times you get a lot of intolerance, of like I get it, but here's my point of view. There's not really a lot of listening, and not just a lot of listening or understanding. So, one is that I'm really going to be trying to do personally is just like I do with the gospel now, not trying to force people to understand because you cannot force people to understand. They're gonna have to understand that on their own pace. But instead, focus on what matters and focus on who will understand, but not just that, but just be an example, be a better example of how we should act. So
Mm-hmm.
I do want to have a better perspective regarding that. Another thing is just understanding, like even with Elvis, like when I mention Elvis, like they say he stole songs. Okay, but they're good though. But it's like no, he stole songs. That's wrong because we like to talk about morals and stuff. Oh, but he's dead. Well, there's Michael Jackson. He's dead, and he's done a lot of stuff, and his crimes and past things, sins are brought out. I don't know if it's true or not. You hear the accusations, you hear all that stuff. That's another topic completely. Please don't mention it in the comments if you hear about it. That's another topic. But it's just a comparison. Is that post mortem? There's people are still being brought there. They're still digging stuff up. So it's like if we're digging his stuff up, let's dig up the other celebrities and their past crimes. Let's dig that up. If it's intolerable, let's dig it up. Regardless of how wonderful their music is. And again, that's MJ, R. Kelly, whatever. That's just gonna be that's something that the black community just and maybe as a whole, but more especially the black community, if we're supporting them, is to just not let things fly under the seats for the sake of like enjoyment and entertainment. And that's for other people. But that's again, that's gonna be another topic. I'm sorry, that's just gonna be another topic. That topic currently is just it's just simply, we need to have a better understanding regarding other people. Um, I really think so. Because it's like if you don't know them, do a Google search. Don't just sit here and listen to some media outlet who don't know a thing about them to just writing talk notes and saying like speaking from a biased point of view. They're just like, okay, because if you see, again, one of the things I do like to do is to have a rather balanced perspective. So if I hear something negative about somebody, I try to go from, okay, what's the positive things that they've done, what's the negative things that they've done, why did they do it, and maybe not even why, but just how can I gauge it from an outsider perspective. Let me weigh it. Let me weigh it from both sides. Instead of just listening to people who claim themselves to be better, but have their own sins. And it's like, again, I'm not sitting here absolving him. If he was actually doing bad things, then you know that's the result of it, and it's sad, but that's just it is what it is. But I don't know. I personally can't give a stamp on it. I just know the positive things, and it's sad that he's gone. That he's not going to continue those positive things in this community, which will help us to understand. Like, man, this gang mentality gotta go. Or rather, not just gotta go because originally these gangs were meant for us, the people. Maybe they need to be negotiated. And you can say, well, we don't negotiate with criminals. It's just like, well, how else are you going to do it? How else? I mean, I don't know. What about backer gangs? They're akin to it. I don't know. I personally don't know, but I just think to myself, why not? Why can't we negotiate with them? Why can't we just engage them? I mean, I've seen some people from um not Reach Records. I mean, maybe they're doing something, but from the Legacy Conference with Brian Dye, and it's not him specifically. It was like classes about urban engagement, and just engaging the culture. And I think that's again I've heard plenty of talking points about it, but it's like definitely you can't just say simple terms. These things, these issues. America history is very, very complicated. It's very entrenched. Is like I like to think of things very simple, but again, I think of America just going through its growing pains, and it's like its teenage identity crisis, because it's like I don't know what I am. I don't know who I think I am, who people say I am. Who am I? And it's like they used to say they were this entire time, and now that's being challenged. Identity is being challenged, and so it's just like, and I've once said that, like, America was born off rebellion, Emancipation Proclamation. If they were really about Christianity, they would have followed, obey your authorities, which was Britain, the church at the time. So it's like they would have submitted to the church until the church was like, okay, now you can break off, or whatever the case may be for the authority. But they didn't do that. They broke off. They rebelled. They did what the slaves could have tried to do. John Brown rebellion. That's basically the same thing, and they had civil wars. The Boston Tea Party. They didn't want to pay taxes, so they threw the tea overboard. You know, think that was that lawful to do? Was that moral to do? I bring it up to just say like our past ain't pretty or perfect. It's not. You know, and for us to assume it is and start being taking the moral high ground now is illegitimate. It's just not right. It's not a fair comparison, and it'd be wrong of us to assume that it is. Okay, at the end of the day, Nipsey Hussle, I like to think he was a great example. I don't know. Again, I don't know what his extra activities were. I don't know if he was gang affiliated. I don't know if there was violence. I don't know if he was helping people while engaging in activity. And even if he was, I don't know if that was his downfall. I don't know if he was helping and hurting the community at the same time. I just know the helpful parts. In deep in I guess in detail, in confidence. You know. So I just hope that there are many other Nipsey Hustles can can do what he did and just try to maintain a wise living and help out the oppressed and needy. Because isn't that similar to the Bible for my Christian folks? And um I'm not saying that we shouldn't thoughtfully engage people. I'm not saying do this, do this, do this. I'm need to do stuff, but I just think, you know, I like to think very similar to Jesus and Paul himself was they took a good amount of time of like preparing, processing, waiting, praying. Abraham, when he was trying to get a son, he was waiting and praying. He was preparing, and when the time was right, they got elevated. The Bible says like it's good for you to be at the end of the table at the lower part, so that you may be elevated to be risen up to the front of the table, rather than the opposite of being to the top and then being told and humiliated to go to the end of the table. Sorry, that's all. That's all I got.